This shield and spears come from Sarawak, Malaysia, which is part of Borneo, and it comes from the Dyak people. In 1975, my wife and I visited Kuching, which is the capital of Sarawak, and in the market we met a young man with big long ears, and he was obviously a Dyak. He was about 15, and he wanted to practice his English, and he said to us, would we like to come up and see his longhouse, the family longhouse? He said it was just upriver. So we get on a river boat with him. It's kind of a river bus. And this was about noon on a weekday, and we went and we went and we went. And finally my wife said, well, how far is this? He says, oh, it's just up a little bit more. It turns out it was a 5-hour bus ride on the boat up to the longhouse. And at the longhouse, all the people were out. There were about 50 people of his kinfolk waiting to see us, and we had to climb out of the boat and climb up a notch log into the longhouse, and it was very exciting. But we realized that there was no way we were going to get home that evening. And so my wife asked when the next boat was going back, and he said, oh, there's a boat every 3 days. Well, we'd had no preparation, and my wife was irritated with him and with me. But we got out at the log house, and it was time for dinner because the sun was going down. So we sat down on some slats of bamboo with the whole extended family, and they brought out a plate full of cassava that had been pounded. They brought out some boar meat that was at least 6 weeks old. It was gangrened, and it was moving around on the plate caused by the maggots. And they had water that they'd drawn from the river that had little floating things in it. And I said to my wife, we shouldn't partake of this, and we had nothing to eat, but that was not a good idea. So as we took supposed pretend bites, we'd push them through the bamboo out of the way. Unfortunately, they hit the water plopping below us, indicating to everybody that we weren't partaking of their food. Well, we kind of explained it that we'd had upset stomachs. As soon as dinner was done, it was time to sleep, and they informed us that the women slept inside with the women, and the men slept outside with all the men. So my wife laid down somewhere near wherever the other women were, and I was sent outside, just sleeping on a mat on the bamboo. It was cold, it got coolish, but the worst part was the mosquitoes, and I covered myself with a sheet to protect against the mosquitoes. We got up the next morning, and as you can imagine, my wife was in a very bad mood. But I was called over by this young man who was the only English speaker on the longhouse to meet his uncle, who was the chief of the longhouse. The next thing I knew, I was made a blood brother of this Dyak tribe. My wrist was cut, and his wrist was cut, and we mixed our blood. All this, of course, was pre-HIV. And my wife said to me with clenched teeth, if we don't go back to Kuching, the capital, now, I may never speak to you again. And there was no boat, but there was a boat a mile away in the river. The young man took his shirt off, started screaming across the water. The boat came and picked us up. And my wife and I said goodbye quickly. I was given this shield and these spears as a blood brother of the clan. And I think we rode the entire boat ride back to the capital, Kuching, without a word spoken between us. Subsequently, we went into marriage counseling, and 4 years later, we were divorced. This is a divorce shield and spear.